Hello, this is Game Philosopher. Welcome to my channel and thank you for watching my video because today we're going on metaphysics. So what is metaphysics? Well, that is a good question. It is the investigation on reality. And what is reality? It goes into topics like being, um, to what purpose something is, and so on and so on and so on. So a lot of times you will see a lot of cross references between metaphysics and logic, because in logic, which is also known as dialectic, we have a way to categorize things, which I have actually already covered in a previous video. If you want to watch it, go ahead. I will not put links in the description. You'll have to look at my channel. But, for example, in logic, you have genus differences, or differentiae. You have species, all these different things in the categories. In fact, in the isagoge and in the on categories of Aristotle, people often look at metaphysical talks about that, even though those are actually technically more logical treatises. So, anyway, without further ado, what is metaphysics and its terminology? I will go into greater detail in a later video, but not right now. So I just want to talk about some basics. So you have things like ontology, which is the study of being. And according to Aristotle, in his Metaphysics, in the Book of Data, accidental being, per se being, accidental being examples, we say that a just man is musical, that a man is musical, and that a musician is a man. This is exactly similar to saying that the musician builds and that the builder has an accidental feature of being a musician. And I'll skip ahead to being per se. That the being, that the use of being, it is something that is true. And another use of not being is to say something is not true, but false. Or being and that which is indicate both what is potential and what is actual. Among the cases that we have reviewed for, we say that both potentially and what is actually, see is seeing, and in the same vein we say both that and what can use it. Knowledge is knowledgeable, and what is actually using it. And we say that both what is already in stasis and what can be in stasis is in stasis. And same with substances. That is hypostasis, by the way. Although there's another use for the word hypostasis, which I'll talk about in a second. We say that Hermes is in the stone, and that the half line is the line, and that we say that the corn is corn even when it's not ripe. It is, of course, quite different question when something is and when it's not yet potential. So yeah, now hypostasis. There are two different uses of that term, really, traditionally in metaphysics. For one, most of you guys who are aware of Christian theology, hypostasis in the theological context often is used to refer to the different persons of God, because like hypostasis can refer to personhood. And so, the Father is a person of God, the Son is a person of God, the Holy Spirit is a person of God, and they're united by one essence. But I'm not going to talk about essence right now because we're talking about hypostasis in a sense. Now, what Aristotle says about substance, which is another term of hypostasis, which I just reviewed, the simple bodies, examples, fire, water, earth, also bodies, which are generally the compounds of them, animals, divinities, and their parts. All these things are said to be substances because far from their being predicated of the same subject, the other things are predicated of them. In another way, something which, being intrinsic to one of the sort of things that are not predicated of another, is the cause of being for it, and the soul is for the animal. The intrinsic part of such a thing, which delimits them and indicates their thisness. The parts on the elimination of which the whole is eliminated, as the body is eliminated by the elimination of the plane on some view, and the plane by the elimination of the line. More generally, some hold that the number is like this, or that the what it was to be that thing, whose particular account and definition is said to be the substance of the particular. The offshoot of these is that there are two ways of giving account of substance: the ultimate subject, which is never predicated of something else, and that something which is this something is also separable, and the shape and form of the particular is like this. So, basically speaking, I'm going to now rely on the organon, that you have accidents, then you have essences. What's the difference? An accident is like, I'll use myself as an example. I have red hair on my beard, blonde hair up here. Does that mean all human beings are male, have red beard, blonde hair up here? Nope. We've seen human beings with black hair, with white hair, gray hair, brown hair, all sorts of hair color. That does not make a human being. It just happens to be part of what makes up me as an individual human being that separates me from other human beings in an aesthetic sense. Or with the essence. There are so many essential qualities to a man that men have reason. Men are a featherless biped, or biped animal. And I'm going to sound like Cornel West because I think it's funny how he says it. Born in between urine and feces. Thank you, Dr. Cornel West. But anyway, I just love that laugh, but with that particular thing. Anyway, what makes up something that, it's required that this condition is met for something to be something. That is exactly what an essence is, while the accident is relying on something else. So, hair is different from red hair. So redness is just that accidental quality that describes the hair. But the hair itself has its own qualities. It's the straight little, or sometimes curvy little thing of fluff that's on something. That's usually an animal. And so there you have it. That's substances and accidents. Or substances, so long as it talks about the accidents and the essences of a thing, which does relate to hypostases, but not all of the hypostases is related to the substances of things, because you also have the personhood. And what is a person? It's an entity. So the thing itself is the person. So when we're talking about the hypostases of God, that's the person of God. And these three different states, or not three different states, these three different hypostases, which share one essence, the one ousia, as the Greeks would call it. Now, I kind of already talked about identity a little bit by talking about hypostases and accidents and all this other stuff. Now, talking about differences, this is kind of more of a categorical type idea. That the things that are other while being the same thing, and not only numerically, but also formally or generically or by analogy, the things of which genus is other also contraries and things that have otherness in their substance. So, in other words, these things separate different members of a species or genus. So, all who are animals. So, monkeys do not share a lot of common quality with fish or owls. but they all share some things in common. That's why they're all one genus, which is an animal. They're all animated. They have a principle of life within them. As Aristotle and many of the early thinkers call it, a soul, which is the first principle of all living things, according to Aristotle's De Anima. I'm sorry, to those who think that animals don't have souls, that's quite not true. Animals just don't have rational souls. And some animals, people will dispute whether or not they have rational souls, such as the dolphin. But I'm not going to get into that. That's not the topic of this video. Contrary qualities. So, when we're talking about contraries, we're talking about things that are widely differentiated in the same genus. So you have differences, then you have this more radical category called contrary. And they cannot say, but then you have this idea that they cannot simultaneously refer to the same thing. So if I say I am happy, but I'm like all sad, I can't simultaneously be happy but sad at the same time. That would be quite absurd, wouldn't it? Now, quality, that's kind of self-explanatory. I'm not going to talk about it. Nor will I talk about respect. But I'm going to talk about having and habits, the states of things. It's a sort of actualization of what has and what is had. Just as with the sort of action or progress when, for instance, A makes and B is made, there's a difference between A and B and making. And in the same way, when there's something which has a piece of clothing and a piece of clothing that is had, there is a difference between the haver and the had having. So, in other words, the state of a thing is not necessarily going to be the same. Like I said about sadness and happiness. So I have a potential for happiness, but I might be sad right now. That just means I don't have happiness. But I'm in a state of sadness. So if I'm in a state of sadness, my actuality is sadness, but my potentiality is happiness. So there you have it. So that's a state, and that's a simple way to explain things. When we're talking about stuff like metaphysics, you have things like being a part of something and being a whole. So that's a thing of the one and many paradox, or a problem which I will talk about in a later video. I'm not going to talk about it right now. Be from something means that you're predicated of something. That means that you're, in order for you to exist, something else has to happen. So, in order for me to exist, that means my parents had to have copulated ever so many years ago when I was born. Or, for me as a human being to exist, there has to have the particular chemical compounds that have made it so that I can live every day of my life. Or, in the state of living, which I am, certain conditions have to be made for me to be sad or happy or so on and so on and so on. Certain conditions have to be made for me to be of the quality of overweight or even skinny, strong, so on and so on and so on. That is to be from something. Now, the qualities of truthfulness and falseness, that's more of a question of logic and epistemology. I'm not going to go over that too much, but I'm going to go now over destiny. And like when we're talking about actuality and potentiality, we're also looking at what purpose something is and to what purpose it was designed and what it was made of and so on and so on and so on. I've talked about this in previous videos. Go ahead and look at them. But this is a basic metaphysics video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'm going to talk more about metaphysics later. Thank you for watching. Like, comment, subscribe. Enjoy your day. Why don't you tell me about your metaphysical ponderings? And when I'm talking about metaphysics, I'm not talking about that magic stuff. That magic stuff is not metaphysics. In fact, there are so many people who say, Ooh, metaphysical states. Well, my happiness is a metaphysical state because metaphysics is a state, is not a state, it's a science on what is reality. And if I'm in a state of happiness, that means I'm in a metaphysical state because I am in a state of happiness. I am possessing happiness. It's part of me at this moment. So don't talk about metaphysical states in that way. Talk about reality. Thanks for watching.